Welcome to the deep dive. We're here to really cut through the noise for you. It's September 10th, 2025, and we're connecting the dots on some big stories across tech, politics, the economy, you name it.
Yeah, it's definitely a day with some, let's say, startling developments. And what's really interesting is seeing how things that seem totally separate, a tech stock boom, a tragic accident, economic data questions actually tie together.
They really do paint a picture of these underlying forces shaping things.
Exactly, reshaping industries, markets, even society. And it's happening fast.
Okay, so let's dive right in. The tech world is just buzzing about Oracle. Historic day, right? Best since 1992. Stock
Oh, yeah.
surged. What exactly happened there? What's driving this huge leap?
Well, it really boils down to their cloud demand numbers. Specifically for AI, they reported, get this, $455 billion in remaining performance obligations.
Wow, $455 billion.
Right.
What does that mean exactly? Contracted revenue?
Yeah, basically contracted future revenue, and that number is up 359% from a year ago. Analysts are thinking maybe $180 billion, so they blew past that.
Okay, so a massive beat on expectations.
Massive. And it shows Oracle has kind of become the go-to place for AI workloads. They're not just storing data. They're handling the really heavy computing stuff for AI models.
And they're projecting huge growth from this.
Oh, yeah. They see cloud infrastructure revenue hitting $144 billion in fiscal 2030. That's up from like $10 billion recently. So a 14-fold jump in 5 years.
Incredible. And they're spending big to make it happen.
$35 billion in capital expenditure just for fiscal 2026. So yes, serious investment.
It's staggering. But it's not just numbers on a spreadsheet. This translates to real wealth. Larry Ellison's net worth jumped over $100 billion in one day.
And CEO Safra Catz, $412 million richer.
Jim Cramer even said, Oracle's turning regular investors into millionaires, that if you own the stock, your life is different today. Is that sustainable, though, or is this just like peak hype?
That's the big question, isn't it? What's interesting is how they're doing it. It's these strategic alliances, right? With OpenAI, xAI, Meta, NVIDIA, AMD, all the big AI players.
So they're not just building their own thing in isolation.
Exactly. They're becoming the foundation for, well, a lot of the AI revolution.
Yeah.
It suggests the demand is pretty broad. But yet, concentration of power, market dominance. Those are always questions down the line. Can they keep that edge, keep those partners happy?
And for you listening, the key thing is, this isn't just Oracle. We saw that ripple effect, right? How fast did other AI stocks jump?
Almost immediately. NVIDIA up 4%, Broadcom soared 10%.
Wow, 10% for Broadcom.
Yeah. AMD up 2%, Micron 4%, Taiwan Semi also up 4%, and that was after they reported a big sales jump in August anyway.
So the market sees Oracle's win as a win for the whole AI ecosystem, boosts confidence everywhere.
Pretty much, yeah. A rising tide, so to speak.
Okay, so while AI is booming in the digital clouds, let's shift to the literal clouds. Air travel is facing, well, some really tough challenges, forcing a hard look at safety. We have to talk about the tragic Air India crash back in June, Flight 171.
Yeah, just devastating. Deadliest in a decade. 241 people on board, plus 19 on the ground.
And the early report pointed to confusion in the cockpit. Something about fuel switches being turned off, but the pilots denied doing it. That sounds complicated.
It really does. And it highlights just how critical procedures and, human factors are in the cockpit. Air India's CEO, Campbell Wilson, he came out saying they're embracing a new normal, stepping up safety focus, taking a significant safety pause.
Which is happening right as they're trying to modernize the whole airline, right?
Since privatization.
Exactly. They've got orders for 570 new planes. It's a massive overhaul. And crucially, the preliminary report said there was nothing wrong with the plane, the engines, or the airline's operations.
So it really points back to the cockpit, to potential human error or procedural breakdown.
That seems to be the focus, yes. And it's a challenge, right? How do you maintain that absolute peak operational safety while you're growing and changing so fast?
It's a huge undertaking, and fleet strategy is key there. We're also seeing newer airlines making big bets, like Avelo Airlines. They just ordered 50 Embraer E195 E2 jets, right, with options for 50 more. And that's Embraer's first E2 sale in the U.S., so big deal for Embraer, too.
What's the thinking behind that for Avelo? They're a startup, right? Why bet on that specific jet?
Well, Avelo's strategy is kind of interesting. They've been flying older Boeing 737 since 2021, had some struggles in certain markets. So the E2 bet is about differentiation.
So
The E2 has that 2x2 seating, no middle seats, and it's quieter. They're aiming it at shorter routes, smaller cities, maybe offer a better experience, avoid the really crowded routes.
carving out a niche?
Kind of.
Hmm.
You know, bigger airlines sometimes see these smaller jets as a fleet complication, more training, different parts. But for a smaller carrier like Avelo, it could be their sweet spot, serve those underserved markets better. It's a gamble, but a strategic one.
Okay, so that's the air. What about getting around on the ground? Things might look very different soon. Amazon's Zoox just launched free robo-taxi rides in Vegas. They're in the race now.
And Zoox is, well, they're different. Their vehicle isn't just an adapted car.
Right, it's that purpose-built thing. Looks kind of like a toaster.
Yeah, toaster on wheels is one description. No steering wheel, no pedals. Seats face each other, holds 4 people. Bi-directional wheels, too.
So it can move sideways almost.
It's designed to be super maneuverable. The whole philosophy is built from the ground up around the rider.
Which sounds cool, but does that make it harder to, get approved or accepted compared to Waymo or Tesla adapting existing cars?
That's the trade-off, isn't it? By starting from scratch, they aim for this optimal futuristic experience, but they miss out on the scale and cost savings of just modifying existing cars. Waymo, Alphabet's company, they've done over 10 million paid rides already in adapted vehicles. Tesla's still testing with safety drivers.
And safety is obviously the huge question. Zoox had a collision, some software recalls recently. How do they address that, especially with such a novel vehicle?
Well, their CTO, Jesse Levinson, put it bluntly, "Our bar is not being perfect. It's being significantly safer than a human." But you're right, public perception is huge.
Especially for something that doesn't even look like a car.
Exactly. Regulators are still figuring out the rules for full autonomy. And a radical design like Zoox's brings up all sorts of new questions. We saw issues with Uber's and Cruise's tests in the past.
So the tech needs to be safe, but people also need to feel safe.
Precisely. Trust is crucial. Zoox is starting with free rides. They say profitability isn't decades away, and they're building a factory aiming for 10,000 vehicles a year. So, they're serious, but it's a long road.
Well, okay, let's pull back to the broader economy, things affecting your wallet. Big news today. The Labor Department's Inspector General is probing the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the BLS, looking into how they collect jobs and inflation data. That sounds serious.
It is potentially very significant. There are a couple of triggers. One is they apparently reduced some data collection for the CPI and PPI, that's consumer and producer prices.
The main inflation numbers we watch.
Right. And maybe even more impactful, they just revised down the job numbers for the year ending March 2025 by 911,000 jobs.
Whoa, nearly 1 million jobs. Vanished from the previous count.
Yeah, it's the biggest downward revision in over 20 years. And this really fuels concerns about the reliability of the data we rely on for, well, everything economic.
And there's a political angle too, isn't there?
There is. President Trump had fired the previous BLS commissioner, questioned the data before, and the current Labor Secretary, Chavez DeRaymer, even said these revisions give more reason to doubt the integrity.
So it feeds into that narrative.
It does. And it's not just politics. If the Fed can't trust the data, how do they set interest rates? If you can't trust the data, how do you plan? It creates uncertainty.
Speaking of data, we got the Producer Price Index, the PPI, for August today, and it actually declined, unexpectedly.
Yep, down 0.1%. That's the third time this year we've seen a deflationary PPI reading.
And President Trump jumped right on that.
Immediately, on Truth Social, declared no inflation and demanded a big rate cut from the Fed.
How much of these data revisions are just normal statistical adjustments, though, and how much points to a real problem?
That's the tricky part. Revisions are normal as more data comes in. But like I said, a 911,000 job revision, that's way outside the norm. It does raise genuine questions about the initial methods.
And market reaction. Muted.
Mostly muted today. Everyone's kind of holding their breath for the CPI tomorrow and the Fed's decision next week. But analysts, they see this weak PPI as paving the way for a rate cut. Citigroup economists are calling for a quarter-point cut now.
Interesting. So while that's the big picture, let's talk personal finance. Student debt is always a huge issue. The Trump administration is doing something new there.
Yeah, the Department of Education is launching an initiative to warn students and families more explicitly about the benefits and risks of federal loans, trying to encourage careful borrowing.
Makes sense, given the nearly $1.7 trillion in outstanding debt and record defaults.
It does on the surface, but consumer advocates are pushing back a bit.
Why is that?
They argue it might be a distraction, that the real urgent need is fixing the existing problems, dealing with consumer complaints, the messy servicing system. That massive backlog of over 1.3 million applications for income-driven repayment plans.
Right, especially since the Save Ye plan got repealed. That
Yeah.
left a lot of people scrambling.
Exactly. So the advocates are saying warning people is fine, but let's fix the broken system first. It's a complex issue.
Definitely. But okay, for those of you looking to maybe maximize your financial moves, there are some interesting opportunities popping up, like this new Chase Sapphire Reserve offer.
Oh yeah, that's a big one. They've boosted the welcome bonus to 125,000 points, which if you use it right can be worth around $2,500 in travel.
That's significant. It's a premium card though, right? High annual fee.
It is $795 annual fee, so it's not for everyone, but the benefits offset a lot of that if you use them. You get access to over 1,300 airport lounges through Priority Pass and Chase's own lounges.
Plus travel credits.
Yep, a $300 annual travel credit, and now a $300 annual dining credit, too. Plus, they've added free Apple TV Plus and Apple Music for a couple of years, which is another, what, $250 in value annually?
So if you travel and dine out a lot, it could easily pay for itself.
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah.
And the real key is transferring those points to Chase's travel partners, airlines, hotels. That's usually where you get the best value, much better than just redeeming for cash back.
Good tip. Okay, shifting gears again, let's touch on some political flashpoints where the independence of federal institutions is really being tested. There's a lawsuit from former FBI officials.
Yes, 3 former top officials are suing FBI Director Kash Patel and Attorney General Pam Bondi. They claim they were fired, essentially, because the White House wanted them gone to keep Patel in Trump's good graces.
What are the specifics? That sounds like a serious allegation.
The lawsuit alleges Patel told one of them he basically had to fire people his bosses wanted fired to keep his own job. And he supposedly mentioned that the president felt the FBI tried to put him in jail and hadn't forgotten it. It also follows reports that a former acting director resisted giving Patel a list of agents who worked on January 6th cases. So it taps right into concerns about political interference in law enforcement.
And that theme of independence connects to another legal fight, too, right? The one involving Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook.
Exactly. President Trump is appealing a judge's order that blocked him from firing Governor Cook.
And the judge's reasoning was about Fed independence.
Precisely. The judge said the public interest in Federal Reserve independence favored keeping Cook, and that she'd shown Trump likely violated the Federal Reserve Act, which requires cause for removal.
Cause, meaning a specific valid reason, not just political disagreement.
Right. It's meant to shield the Fed from political pressure so they can make monetary policy decisions independently. If Cook is ultimately removed, it's a big deal. Trump would then be positioned to nominate a majority of the Fed's board.
Potentially reshaping the central bank for years.
Decades, potentially, yes.
Okay. From those legal battles, we unfortunately have to turn to something really tragic and frankly shocking that happened today. A very somber note.
Yeah, deeply disturbing. The assassination of conservative activist Charlie Kirk in Utah.
He was shot and killed during an event at Utah Valley University. What details do we have?
It appears an unknown gunman fired from a campus building about 200 yards away. Kirk, who was 31, was hit once in the neck. The shooter is still at large.
And this happened while he was speaking at his American Comeback Tour.
Yes. The event apparently had a prove me wrong table. Reports say he'd just been asked a question about transgender issues and mass shootings right before the shot was fired.
It was awful. The condemnation was immediate and widespread, though, wasn't it? From across the political spectrum.
It really was. President Trump ordered flags lowered. Former Presidents Biden and Obama, Speaker Mike Johnson, many others expressed condolences and condemned the violence. A rare moment of unity, sadly born from tragedy.
It highlights the intense, sometimes dangerous climate we're in.
It does. And it's impossible not to note Kirk's own previous, very public views on gun rights. Back in April 2023, he'd said something like, "You'll never have 0 gun deaths with an armed citizenry, and that cost is, quote, worth it to protect the Second Amendment."
That quote certainly takes on a different light today.
It does. And adding to the tragedy, just minutes later, there was another shooting nearby at Evergreen High School, critically injuring 3 students. It just underscores this pervasive issue of gun violence.
Such a heavy day on many fronts. Before we wrap up, let's briefly mention one more innovation, circling back to small business. Uber Eats and a fintech called Pipe are partnering.
Yeah, it's an interesting solution. Pipe's tech is now embedded in the Uber Eats app for restaurants. It offers them access to capital loans, essentially, but without needing traditional credit checks or FICO scores.
How does that work?
It uses AI to analyze about 6 months of their anonymous credit card sales data. Based on that performance, it offers pre-approved funding. They say it has a 98% approval rate, funds arrive in 24 hours.
That could be huge for small restaurants, especially those maybe run by immigrants without long credit histories.
That seems to be a key benefit, yes. Basing lending on actual business health, not just traditional scores. They report businesses using it see about 12% monthly growth. So, a potentially powerful tool.
Okay, wow. We have covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. From, Oracle's mind-blowing AI-driven valuation,
To the really sobering focus on aviation safety after the Air India tragedy.
then digging into the questions around economic data, the BLS probe, the student loan challenges,
And those fintech solutions like the Chase Card offer and the Pipe Partnership for Restaurants.
and then, of course, the really intense political and legal fights over federal independence and the truly tragic events surrounding Charlie Kirk.
It's a snapshot, isn't it? All these diverse stories, but you see those threads running through innovation, clashing with challenges, the human response to incredibly rapid change.
Yeah, and we really hope that hearing these connections helps you, our listener, think about the ripple effects in your own world.
Absolutely. Consider how these shifts play out.
So here's a final thought to leave you with. As all these industries get reshaped, as these conversations, sometimes tragically intense, continue, how do you think this relentless pursuit of progress in tech, business, government, how will it keep challenging our ideas about security, about fairness, and even about human connection itself?
Something to definitely keep exploring and questioning.
Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.